Okay, I think I did this right. There's always like this pause when I start. Someone asks, is Tom always confused when he starts a live stream? And the answer is a lot of times Tom is confused when he starts a live stream. It's a thing that happens sometimes. But it's a Saturday. Oh, it does say Saturday. It should say Sunday. Can I edit it in live? Sunday live. Let's see if it lets me save. Save changes. Yes, we can do a title change in production. I copy and paste a bit too much, but the goal is to make less mistakes. You just make different mistakes when you copy and paste. Things aren't misspelled. They just have the wrong day on them, but that's life. Welcome though, all of you on this wonderful, well, if you're in Michigan, at least in Detroit area, we've got kind of a drizzly day, but one of the reasons I'm not outside enjoying it, because, well, I was outside enjoying it. I sat outside for a little under the awning and watched it rain and said, I need to do a Sunday live stream. Good morning to everyone. Confused when stream actually starts. That's because YouTube is as reliable. Yeah, sometimes it can be confusing. There is no doubt. All the way from lovely Porto. I'm going to try to say it the best I can. Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. So awesome. People are from all over. Let me grab my water. Norway. I figured I'll get a couple of my European friends showing up in here because it's always, when it's early now, it's like, hey, it's afternoon in Norway. And Norway's a cool place. Eventually I'll spend some time in Europe. I have not spent any time in Europe as of right now, but I got to do more exploring on the US side and then I'll wander around the European side. But I figured firewalls are a good topic. And, well, I think firewalls are always a good topic. So not just a good topic. They're always fun to talk about. And I'm trying to remember, I was trying to look this up because I meant to put it in some notes that there's a person working on, and this is where all of you will be very helpful on this, because I've seen some of his videos. He's building a custom open WRT that can do 10 gig. And I think that's pretty cool. And I kind of want to play a little bit with open WRT, but there's a lot of questions that come up with like alternative firewalls. And it's not simple because there's not a lot of great choices out there once you are looking in the Homelab space. It feels like our choices are much more narrow than they used to be. And OpenWRT is neat, but it just doesn't have the features of some of the other more popular ones. But the other side of it is the more popular ones, and pfSense is definitely on this list here. They are missing some of the other features you might want, such as a layer 7 filtering. I know you can put some add-ons on there. And my problem with OpenSense is always that it just feels so buggy all the time. pfSense at least is stable, but I know now the CE version is basically, it's getting supported, but it's not getting new features. So it's kind of static. Someone asked me if I stopped doing pfSense videos. I said, there's not anything that's changing. Even in the CE version, I know it's static, but the plus version, there's not anything new to talk about. So people like, Tom, you haven't done a pfSense video. I'm like, I did one like a month ago, but there's not anything new that is like, oh, this is the new thing I got to do. Because someone asked if my OpenVPN video was still relevant because it's 2 years old. And yeah, that's very relevant. They haven't changed OpenVPN, and it's been quite a number of years. And the only thing that really changed in OpenVPN was they deprecated some of the, I think it's site-to-site certificate got deprecated, but the video hasn't changed because the setting up as a user VPN, it works well. WireGuard's been out for a while. They integrated into pfSense, and here we are. I've done some WireGuard videos. I don't know. Do I need to do more of them? People seem to think the video has to be new. I've thought about just re-uploading the video because it will bump it again, but that feels very disingenuous to re-upload the same video. But then the YouTube algorithm will have new people discovering it as if it's a new video, and seeing as there's nothing changed in the last 2 years, it's completely relevant. But I don't know. I'm not here to game the system. I just thinking out loud here because I try to interact and engage with the audience as much as possible so I can get your questions answered and make sure I'm giving you the most up-to-date information on all this. But Ubiquity, of course, I've talked a lot more about, and it's because I think even for the Homelab environments, obviously people who want to get deeper into network engineering, pfSense is going to be much better for learning that. And I'll throw it out there for people that want to tinker with OpenSense. I know a lot of you are huge fans of OpenSense, and that's fine. Like I said, I've said my part about it, but if you want to use it, go ahead. And I think those are great for getting those understandings of things. But sometimes people go, well, I just really want to play with Docker and I want to play with Kubernetes and I want to self-host all my applications. I don't want to have to also spend a ton of time learning about firewalls. This is one of the reasons I think Ubiquiti has a place in the Homelab, because even though it's not open source, as much as I would love all things to be open source, that's hard. And I think I'm going to do a video soon that I can just send as a reply to people. It'll say open source is not a business model. And what people try to tell me is whenever they see me talking about an open source project and they find out there's some way that open source project gets funded, immediate comments are, this is not in the spirit of open source, Tom. And I'm like, part of me wants to say you're right, because not paying developers is partially the spirit of open source for, I'm not gonna say for better or worse, mostly for worse, but its reality is open source is a method by which you are writing software. It is a process. It is putting a GPL license on this, but it is not a business model. And at some point you need a business model in order to pay people. And this goes right back to the firewalls. There were so many open source firewall projects. There were a lot of them. The history of it is rich and amazing. And then it just kind of faded away. And now anytime someone sells hardware to support the open source developers that they have developing their product, people lose their mind and get mad and go, and this is completely not in the spirits of it. So yeah, it's kind of an aggravation, but it's also, I think, driving companies to maybe not be as open source, which is unfortunate. I really like the Open Source Security podcast. I highly recommend listening to it. And if I can remember which episode it was, but it was one of the ones talking about, I believe it was the SSH bug, because there was a call to action for, we need changes in the open source industry. We need all developers to have their full names and details about their life and where they live, et cetera, et cetera. And I like their take on it immediately, as they're both open source developers, going, no, clearly you've never had a death threat because you wouldn't do a pull request. Sometimes the internet is hard on open source people. And it is a challenge, to do that. So this has led us down this path of fewer open source firewalls, fewer open source options available. And especially what drives me crazy is these very big companies, we'll point at any of the hyperscalers, making heavy use of open source, but just, it's not that they're not contributing back. Thank you for the contributions they do, but they're not contributing back near to what they benefit from these open source things. And, it's not leaving open source in the best position for things. But nonetheless, I had hello from Berlin. Awesome. I had pfSense for 4 years and switched to Ubiquiti in recent because of pfSense being so static for some time now. Yeah, and for some people, static is fine. I have 2 of our labs have pfSense and it works fine. And I wanted to try something else. And we're obviously doing this with more clients using Ubiquiti, and being able to run Ubiquiti and deal with the complexities of the things I do in my lab. I wanted to make sure Ubiquiti was up to the task before I recommended to Homelab people. So yeah, I switched to it. It's not as much because there wasn't anything with pfSense, but I do appreciate, as many of you, a single pane of glass going, look, I can manage all of my network and I can manage my firewall, and it's all in one dashboard. That's a big convenience, being able to go, great. I want to create this VLAN, apply a zone firewall to it, and firewall rules that are defined in the zones. I've covered that in a video, but then you want to go, well, I just want to do it simply and create it once, not go and create it in the firewall, define it, create it in the switches. That's a big convenience for a lot of people. And I believe it puts their security posture much better. It gives them better control of their network without the steep learning curve. Because like I said, maybe your learning curve you want to spend on your Homelab is setting up self-hosted AI, which I've been talking about because we've been getting more into that, which has been a lot of fun. As a developer, I look for permissive licenses that give me access to do whatever I want with it, with or without accreditation. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Companies or people doing these often do permissive licenses, but as I would say, there's kind of a harassment, if you will, of some of these open source things it can be a pain. This all started as a discussion I seen this morning. I can't remember what subreddit I was in, but someone was looking for a word, and the word they were looking for is enshittification. It is what happens when these companies maybe start as open source, but then change it later. That's something that does occur as well, especially when they're backed by venture capital, which is the bane of all people's existence in terms of what's going on in terms of the destruction of many of these companies. Regarding the old videos, maybe a note in the video that with a newer date stating nothing major has changed may help, at least for those who can want to read. Yeah, I don't know what the Venn diagram looks like for those who actually will read the comments or read the details versus those who ask the questions. I'm feeling there may not be an overlap on those people. I could be wrong. Oh, vulture capital. Yes, that is a much better term. I like to use that quite a bit. Off topic, I watched your video on how to properly do network attached storage. You said never route your storage. Do you have to write MPIO? Are you oh, okay. So like iSCSI multipathing. Well, you don't route that either. If you're talking about like iSCSI multipathing, then that's different, because iSCSI multipath, for example, uses two different subnets, but you're not routing them. You're putting each network interface in a different subnet, and you're putting the network interface of the virtual machine, or not virtual machine, of the hypervisor. If in the example of using it with a hypervisor, obviously you can use it with other things as well. But if you're using a hypervisor, you'll have a network card in one interface, another network card with another interface and a different subnet, and the same thing with your NAS. It'll have two different subnets. That's not routing. That's different subnets. I'm trying to bond 0 to a VLAN. I need also to find a bridge or something. Do you have a video on scale networking? I haven't done a recent one. I'm going to do a new one when 25 comes out, because they made some changes. So my old video will get you through how it works. I have an LACP, a link aggregation, how to create a bond video. I think it's probably enough the same from the older version of Scale that you could defer how it works. But I'm going to do a new networking video for Scale, which isn't going to be called Scale after 25. It's just going to be called TrueNAS Community. So there's the first big change, is that it lost its name. And for that, I'm going to do a video where I show how the different networking options work, how you'd create a bond. There also, if I'm not mistaken, and it might be till June 1st when I do the video. June 1st is when you're going to get the ability to take the applications and also be able to have a IP address set for your different applications. That's coming, I believe, after June 1st. But I'll probably do a shorter video just on how networking works in TrueNAS 25 Community Edition, as it's going to be called. I was looking to get an older Cisco router, but people say it needs to be connected to the internet directly for security reasons. Does that mean it needs to be connected through a firewall? I don't know. I mean, is that older Cisco still getting updates? Was that what you're asking? Is if it needs updates, it needs to get to the internet to get those updates. But is it under support still? So how old is older? Is it past end of life? Are there still updates to get for that? Or do you need a license? I'm fuzzy on how newer Cisco stuff works for licensing. Actually, I think everyone's fuzzy on how Cisco works for licensing, other than it costs a lot of money. And the Info One Express 6 can upgrade to 9104 or at all. I just know they're working on it. That's as best I can tell. I have no information on that. Okay, cool. Yeah, now you're understanding how that works. Awesome. The bond failover, I test changes, it reverts, so I'm stuck. Yeah, like I said, watch my other video. I've done a video on TrueNAS and how to create a bond. It works. I mean, I've done it. I just haven't done it in a video recently. We've done it for clients. We set up a few TrueNAS Enterprise, not the Community Edition, but their Enterprise IX Systems hardware. But I know it works fine on non-IX Systems hardware. It's really, the interface is the same for doing any of that. Can you recommend any UPS brands I can add to the standard list of APC and Eaton? Yeah, I have had a good luck with these. Let me drop a link and pull them up here. Oh, that's not the right model, but you'll get the idea. I'm going to share the site. I was looking for the model that I have. I thought I had it bookmarked. What is the model that I have? There's the one I have. I think it's a P90. That looks like mine. But this is Extreme Networks. I'm sorry, I want to say Extreme Networks is completely wrong. It is Extreme Power Conversion. There is a separate company unrelated to this one. At least I don't think they're related, called Extreme Networks. This is Extreme Power. I have been using these for a while. I did an interview with them a long time ago on the channel. If you look for UPS videos, I don't have many of them, where we talk about all the different ones. And I'll also say Cyber Power is another one. Cyber Power, we've used quite a few of those. But the Extreme, what is their actual company called? It's like Extreme Power Conversion. But yeah, their UPSs, I've been using them for a minute and never had a problem with them. I so rarely, it's probably been 5 or 6 years since I built a rack mount PC, so I don't have any go-to answers on that. Probably Wendell from Level 1 Techs might have some recommendations, or at least through his channel, he's probably covered a few cases. I don't really cover cases because I just don't do builds. We buy more than we build, for better or worse. It's just the businesses we deal with, buying is not the most building out of a bunch of parts is not the most practical way to do it. So we usually use a lot of different super micro systems, sometimes some Lenovo's. How old is too old for Homelab equipment for learning? I have a Dell switch 5248 and I can't find how to reset to get it working. That gets a little challenging. I like some of the older equipment. I think it's fun to play with. Matter of fact, recently, and let me pull up a photo. There's a channel called The Serial Port, and they cover some of the old hardware. And I'm fascinated by, to an extent, especially old hardware I never really got to play with. Like this here is an old F5 Networks device. It's old. It's fun. So is it too old? I don't know. I think they're fun to learn about. I like some of the retro stuff. There is some basics that you can learn with old equipment. Obviously, if you can get into it and figure out how to reset it, that's a different topic. The older equipment can teach you some real fundamentals because they worked in such a primitive way compared to some of the things today. But fundamentally, there's many things that are going to be the same. And I don't know what too old really is, but I don't know. Being able to get into it's obviously the first thing with any of the equipment. If you find older, popular equipment, you generally find more documentation for it. I don't know the exact time era that a Dell 5248 is from. I never really did much in the Dell switches. Never was my specialty. Oddly, some of the first switches I worked with in the 90s they were hubs, by the way, not switches, but they were the Samsung ones. Samsung had some really interesting ones in the 90s. That was one of my first corporate jobs where I got to see them. I thought about it's been forever since I would log into those and do all the commands. I wonder how many of them I can remember. By the way, they were all administered with Telnet. For a guest network on UniFi, am I right in saying if I block all ports except 53, 67, 68 to gateways that will block management interfaces? Yeah, you can create a block and then allow, like you only want to allow certain ones. The nice thing is I covered that in my video, but also there's some predefined ones you can use with UniFi, so you don't have to go through the trouble of doing it. If you use their predefined rules for guest network, saves you some of the trouble. But I do cover that in my video where I talk about the new UniFi firewall rules. It's my only video I have right now on UniFi zone rules, and I cover exactly what ports are needed, but you only need a few ports open, and I showed which ones I blocked. I actually created essentially an alias list of the management ports because I block all those. That way, if I ever add another port, because if you're setting up other things in your UniFi that may be exposed, you can just add it to the port so it gets added to the rule. So we'll add it to the alias. Can you give a quick difference between a Cloudflare tunnel and using an Nginx proxy? Absolutely. This is an interesting one because I know they call them tunnels, but it should be called, in my opinion, Cloudflare proxy because it's just a reverse proxy. The difference is they're handling it for you as opposed to if you set up Nginx and you're hosting it, you're responsible for the infrastructure from top to bottom. So if you're doing Nginx reverse proxy, there's lots of other reverse proxies, Nginx being a really popular one, and you're reverse proxying your application, you're dealing with the certificate, you're dealing with the configuration, you have to have a public IP to expose the port. Cloudflare tunnels is a reverse proxy where they take care of the front end. Their connector is taking an application that you have inside your network and bridging it to their outside content delivery network. So it's a fancier system. Cloudflare is one of the big content delivery networks out there, probably among the biggest with them, Akamai, and I'm not sure who else, but those are a couple that come to mind. And you're getting onto their network and they're taking care of all kinds of little smart things like the ability to pop up where it needs to be. I don't know all the details of how content delivery networks with Cloudflare and their tunnels interact, but I know it does rely on probably their CDN system. So it's really making you also reliant on them. This is the one problem I had with it. They're now part of your trust because they're grabbing the data from inside your network and they're passing it out to their network. So they're part of your line of trust because now they're handling a certificate, they're handling the TLS termination, which means they would have some, not that they're doing it, but they could have visibility into that network or into that network traffic because they're doing the certificate termination. We're hearing protection with old enterprise gear. Old enterprise gear is super noisy. Yeah, 3Com was really popular. Do you see any problem having your internet gateway behind a hosted VM like a virtual OpenSense or Proxmox instead of a hardware OpenSense? I'm partial to doing it hardware. I'm not big on virtualizing firewalls, but you can. It just creates some extra complexity. And one of those complexities is, let's say there's an update to your hypervisor, and you're like, "Great, I got to update my hypervisor." Not so great. My internet has to be down while my hypervisor updates. It should only be a couple minutes. Famous last words. You find there's a problem with your hypervisor that doesn't do the update properly. Oh crap, now I got to troubleshoot it. Oh wait, my internet's broken because my hypervisor is in a boot loop. Let me Google this error on my phone. That's really what you're preventing. It's not that you can't run it that way. It's obviously from a security problem, it can lead to people making mistakes because now you're attaching your WAN to a virtual interface. Make sure you connect it to the proper virtual interface and not accidentally somewhere else. But overall, it's something completely plausible to do, but just be warned when you virtualize your firewall, if you have a problem with your hypervisor, well, you also have a problem with your firewall simultaneously. Yeah, and you can also just use Cloudflare for certificates for your Nginx proxy manager. That works fine. Yeah, Jim's Garage has done it, and DB Tech have both done videos on Pangolin. I've not used it myself, but it is another alternative for hosting. I might take a look at it because it looks like an interesting project. I still have the 3Com badge switch as my emergency backup switch. Yeah, I mean, if you have a high availability virtualization system, then your updates should go smoother because you can put the firewall on one of the other hosts before you reboot the main host. And maybe that's helpful. But once again, it's getting into complexity of things because I've seen high availability go wrong too. and, and that's a whole different problem. I believe that means, and I am not an expert on this, I believe that means you bought a super sticker and awesome and thank you. I'm not sure how some of these, I'm not an expert on how some of the back end of YouTube works sometimes. It's all confusing to me. Do you think XCP&G will ever make a client app as a VMware Horizon? No, I don't think so. I They're not really getting into that aspect of it. There's other tools out there, but that's not their niche, is building out like the virtual applications like that. I don't really see that as a place they're going right now. They leave that up to you. There's other tools out there. I've talked about Chasm before, which is super cool. And then someone will immediately go, but Tom, it's built on Apache Guacamole. Yes, it is. And it's a way more intricate system than basic Apache Guacamole, but you can create serviceable apps through tools like that. The tooling does exist. Apache Guacamole is a cool base, but things like Chasm for application delivery in the browser are pretty awesome. And I think that generally speaking, as things are moving to web applications, it makes it a whole lot easier because it's really only legacy apps that we have to worry about virtual desktops for and things like that. Legacy apps, I'm looking forward to the day we don't deal with as many of those. I love things as web applications. They're just easier to deal with. Taking and having to run, because almost always it's Windows. We have to run something in Windows, then we have to take this almost universally, if it's an older app, it's poorly coded, over bloated. We're looking at you, QuickBooks, and then the client needs to access it. But I'm happy, like even QuickBooks goes, yeah, we're abandoning this. We're pushing everybody to the web interface. I don't know when the deadline is when QuickBooks will eventually abandon local applications, but I know eventually they probably will. What's your take on the state of the IT job market? Seems a little crazy right now. IT job market has always been crazy, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Matter of fact, if anything, we're seeing less rules and regulation enforcement and less conciseness of those rules and regulation, therefore more crazy. If there's not really well-defined roles on things, if there's not really well-defined rules on things, it makes it hard for companies to figure out what they need to hire, who they need to hire, what they need to secure to. What is the baseline? What does secure mean? How do we define that? What are the rules and guidelines I'm trying to follow? And this is a discussion I've had with a large group of very smart cybersecurity people on a regular basis. we have debates and chats and just talking about it. It's part of some of the things I do when I go out to these events is interact with a lot of security community, especially, and it's always going to be in wild market, and make a lot of friends. That is your best bet. If you really want a good job, it's all about having a lot of connections. Go to any type of meetups you can, go to tech events if you can. That's really where you'll meet a lot more people and have a better in. Not easy, by the way. And there's no prescribed like methodology. I can't hand you a script of how to go meet people. That's a lot harder. I have a hard time doing it myself, and I'm someone with a big YouTube channel who talks a lot. And by the way, I talk a lot in general, people who met me in person, and it's still one of the things I try to lean on a lot is all the connections that way. That's my biggest advice for the job market, is make a lot of connections. Yeah, especially if you use Linux, web apps are way better. No, you can do all kinds of filtering. I mean, to bring web apps in a more lockdown way. New commercial motto: you will own nothing, license everything in the cloud, and all your data will belong to us. That is certainly what they want, and that's why I am a big self-hosted person. Whether it be data, that's why I talk a lot about NASA's. We got to put all that data somewhere. We have to host all those applications somewhere. I'm really big on data sovereignty. I own my data, not some stupid cloud company that's trying to wrap me in a rental of my own data. No, the renters that try to extract out of my pocket, screw those people, or as Cory Doctorow calls them, the inshitifiers. Is there any issue if I block the ICMP echo requests on my gateway? in the UniFi firewall. I think it's a terrible idea. And the reason why, you'll find, not always, occasionally, you may find things that try to ping the gateway to make sure that they have some ability to reach the gateway. If you have a device that does that, that device will go, hey, there's no gateway, and may have problems. So I can't say what devices do or don't, and I would recommend leaving ICMP on. Matter of fact, I generally tell people, don't block ICMP. I mean, obviously on the WAN side, that's not a big deal, but blocking ICMP is one of those things. There was a great article from an older sysadmin that I 100% can get behind, of just quit turning off ICMP. This is pinging things. We've got it in our vernacular. Even people outside of the tech industry, if I said I'll ping you later, they know what it means. But when you start breaking a lot of stuff and turning off ICMP, you start breaking things because a lot of things kind of expect it to be on, especially internally on the network. I have a question regarding dataset permissions. I set up SMB permissions, but it keeps getting lost every time. I have to return to TrueNAS to reset the permission repeatedly. I'm using 111. I've not seen it get lost. Generally speaking, and my video on setting up permissions is still relevant. There hasn't been any changes to the interface. And even with version 25 coming out, to my knowledge, there's still no changes. The permissions should work perfectly fine. Once you set them, they should stay set. If they're not being set, you should start looking into what is the last action that made them get unset. Look through the logs. There's actually an audit log inside of, let me find it. It looks even better in version 25, I believe. But we'll pull up, see, I do have one system. I usually leave at least one system running the old version of TrueNAS because I update almost everything, but I have to keep one in case someone has questions and they're going, but Tom, I'm not on version 25. Is it under system? Let me find it real quick and I'll share it. Yeah, system audit. There's an audit log to tell you what's been being changed. And this might be very helpful to you to figure out what's causing that change. This is the audit log. And they have an advanced mode, so you can start switching it. You can export it. But you got to figure out what's changing those permissions because they just don't change on their own. I'm running a network with just over 130 UniFi devices. What are your thoughts on using UniFi firewall in a large environment? Should we use something else? Look at the needs first. Always about the needs. Are there requirements you have that the UniFi can't do? Run down that list in your head. That's the important part of it. And if you need a certain feature that the UniFi can't do, well, then you don't use it. This is one of those things that I repeat a lot to people when they're asking about any particular software, because you could absolutely make the argument that a Cisco Firepower has more features than UniFi. Absolutely. I could also make the argument I can deliver pizzas in a Rolls Royce. It would be odd, but it will work. I don't probably need all the features that a Rolls Royce comes with, although it'd be a really nice pizza delivery vehicle. It's comes down to you could deliver pizzas in a very large freight truck as well. Is it lorry? Is that what they call them in England or in the UK? Someone let me know. I think they're called lorries, but that's what we'll call them, freight trucks here, or we just call them like big rigs. There's different vernacular for them here in Michigan, but you figure out whether or not you have the features, because this is where the firewall argument always falls apart for a lot of people. Of if they have, for example, Active Directory integration, that's not something that UniFi supports, but do you need it? I mean, that's really what it comes down to when you're picking it. I'm really happy, especially with the high availability on the enterprise firewall gateway they have now. Pretty impressive. It's a really affordable solution with full failover, no licensing fees, and a reasonable price attached to it. But for routing, great. For full-on Active Directory permission levels and filtering, sorry, doesn't have that. So run down your list of requirements and make sure those requirements are actually met on one of the UniFis. Yeah, web applications, I'm always talking about as we just mentioned earlier, Nginx Proxy Manager. And I mean, this is a web application that I'm using. It's locally hosted. It's even got a fully qualified domain. It's actually only accessible internally. I could make it accessible externally, but I like playing with some of this self-hosted AI stuff, and it's a lot of fun. And this is all self-hosted, and it's completely doable by you, so you can do this. What embarrassing things might I have in here? Oh, lots of stuff. When to make the donuts. That's what we were talking about the other day. Actually, we'll copy it. Let's have my AI. We'll do a new chat while we're waiting. This one's supposed to be more creative. Is it time to make the donuts? We'll let that think for a minute while we're answering questions. Are you using third-party SIM in any of your UniFi stuff? You can use, I mean, technically yes, because I'm also using Graylog, so that's kind of third-party SIM. But for businesses, we use a tool called Blumera. I just logged in this chat. It's great background while configuring my new Huawei switches in the office. Fun stuff. Our IT security requires that firewalls drop instead of reject. So you sit down 30-second timeouts. Oh. Latest XCPNG has a basic web interface, which keeps getting better. Even for Homelab, why would I install an app on my laptop desktop when a local one will do the job? Yeah, they're working on it. It's a lot going on with their development, and it may be slow, but I really feel their development is very deliberate, very solid, and I love the fact that the team over at Vates is not afraid to refactor code. They're not afraid to get rid of the spaghetti. And that's what happens. You get spaghetti code over time. You get messes, and they're refactoring a lot of it. So I do look forward to when that app becomes a lot more polished that's on there. It's not there yet, but the XO app will always be more feature rich because the backup system that is in the Zen Orchestra web application is not going to my knowledge, migrate into the desktop app, because desktop app is not desktop app, the local web app that's on the host. Lorry or HTV, a UK van is a USA pickup. I think pickups are generally different, I think. I don't know. Would you rather go RAID Z2 plus 1 hot spare or RAID Z3 for 10 disks? Ooh. I mean, it depends on your risk tolerance. Hot spare is not bad, but I feel like it's not doing anything, so I'm not getting the benefit out of it. But I see your point because of storage efficiency. RAID Z3 is really nice. You have several drives can fail. It's good for production if you have a high risk you're trying to avoid. It's solid. But yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. Actually, what I'll do, let's go over to my TrueNAS here. And we can see that Tom chose, go over here, make sure we can see it. This is where my Rusty's where a lot of my data lives for my videos, and it's only a RAID Z2. So I guess Tom would choose RAID Z2 because past Tom chose RAID Z2. I've actually delivered pizzas in what the U.S. would call a semi-truck. Well, pizza ingredients to a local warehouse, but it was for Domino's. Very cool. I've never used AC Hunter, but Security Onions, definitely. I've done a video on it. I think it's great. Security Onion is a great way to learn about SIM tools. Highly recommend it from a learning standpoint. It is a complicated piece of software. You'll spend a lot of time on it, but it can be rewarding because you can get these deep insights into things. I've been playing with it on and off for years. I don't run it on a regular. I just don't need it. And I also know how it works, but every now and then I fire it back up. And that's actually what led to me doing a video on it more recently, was that exact thing. I fired it up because I was like, oh, I'm playing with this. I'm like, this would be a good topic. And so I did a series of videos on it. I'm new to the Homelab area. I bought a top of the line Asus router from Black Friday in 2024. I want to switch it out for Ubiquiti gear. Is it okay to slow switch over or buy my first switch, etc.? I mean, I like to dive right in. I don't know what your budget looks like. And if you just get the UniFi router, that's not a bad place to start, because if you get the UniFi router that has the controller built in, then you can start adding on to that as needed. But I don't know what your needs are for switches, but I would probably start with the UniFi router because it's got the controller built in. If you start with a switch, you got to figure out where to run the controller. Oh yeah, no, web app does not mean not self-hosted. Running 10 gigs symmetrical at home using a Sophos, running PF Sense at the moment, but things are kind of borked. I don't feel like building a new firewall that can handle it. What off the shelf would you use? I mean, if you want to stay in the PF Sense, I would just buy one of the Netgate devices if you're staying in the PF Sense world. And they have all the speed ratings on them. I believe you get full 10, well, depending on how many streams you have, but the 6100, I believe, is the lowest model that has some 10 gig support. How are you using AI in your day-to-day, specifically for networking tasks? I would say, let's look at my search history. Usually, it's just asking questions that maybe, do I even have these in here? I don't know if I have them in here, but I do have, for example, someone asked this, and I don't configure a lot of HPs, and someone had some questions about HP, the HP switch ports. I don't configure a lot of HPs, but I had an idea what they wanted to do. So being able to ask this question in AI and say, hey, and I tell people like, hey, AI generated this. I think this is what you're looking for what you're trying to do with an HP switch. Sometimes it's me answering questions for people. Occasionally, it might be me asking the questions because I want to do some new videos on MikroTik, and I was testing its knowledge, not this. I wasn't using my locally hosted AI. I was using one of the online ones, I think ChatGPT. I do pay for subscriptions for some of the other ones because I just want to be in the know of playing around and seeing how they work. I'm often very disappointed at how inaccurate they are, but that's not the topic here. I do find it to be helpful to ask questions when you're trying to get something sorted out, or you're trying to, need a couple ideas. You can sometimes just describe a problem, and it's occasionally really good at least coming up with a few ideas maybe that you didn't try already when you're trying to sort something out. So I can't say it is a autonomous thing, and anyone telling me that they would turn this on with an agent and what is that new thing everyone's talking about, model control, MCP, model control protocol, and just let it do its job. No, it's wrong too often for that. But for figuring out some ideas and sorting out like, hey, what was the setting to make this work? Or please give me a script to make this happen. It generally gets things right. What did it get wrong the other day? Oh, when I wanted it to do the write-up for me for the Olama NFS video. And that's a great use case. When I need to do a write-up, hey, write this up. And I just give it a basic instruction. I say, I'll put this all in Markdown so I can throw it in my forums. It gave me the wrong information. It told me Olama stored the models, and I've already done this. Like, I've already done the thing. I just want to document the thing in Markdown and with clear explanations. So if you go to my forums, you can go and follow the NFS with all the steps, and it produces really nice output, except it put some of the wrong data in there. And I even said that. I said, that's not where the models are stored. And where Olama models are stored is not a secret. It's in the documentation. I just told it to, hey, I want to move all the Olama models, like, give it the instruction. And it just told me the wrong spot. And I said, you gave me the wrong spot for where the Olama models. It says, oh yeah, I did. Sorry. And then fixed it. So I'm not ready to turn a system like that. And that's ChatGPT 4.0 I used. I'm not ready to turn a system like that over to doing any actual work. Yeah, the inaccuracies is probably why. Yeah, I seen warp. I have Warp Terminal on my Mac notebook. I have not done any AI things with it, but I find it interesting that it's got that in there. Bought a UCG Ultra for the house. I'm finding my VLANs not only able to ping each other's gateways. I'm able to do IP scans across VLANs, even with the block rules in place. Follow my video on the UniFi firewall rules, and hopefully that helps so you can understand it. Now, the first one, though, and this is where there's definitely some confusion. You can, even on a restricted network, ping the other gateways because they're actually the other gateways that are they're not actually other gateways, so the same gateway. So there is an ability if I'm on a lockdown VLAN. So I've got my IoT VLAN, everyone's favorite example. And the IoT VLAN can ping the gateway of my protected VLAN. The reason it can is because they're the same gateway. So it doesn't really matter. It can't get to any of the ports that I've got blocked or anything else. So sometimes there's a confusion because it's not necessarily that you want to ping the gateway. You want to make sure the rules are working of, can you ping other devices? So can my IoT network get to my, what I call the Tom network? No, it cannot. Even though it can ping Tom's gateway, it doesn't have the ability to get over to the Tom network. You have to get respect when I say I use AI to try this and it failed. What model? GPT 4.0. That's I will tell you what's even worse. Their deep research is terrible. That took 12 minutes to give me bad information. I was having it do deep research by pointing it at UniFi's site. And this is funny. I said, go to UniFi's site, and I wonder if I can pull this up because it was just so bad. Using their deep research is like, I was like, this is hot garbage. Do I still have it somewhere? Yeah, hold on. Let me find this real quick because this is so we can do. I want to make sure I'm pulling this up. We'll throw this out here. I was trying to get ChatGPT with their deep research tool, which is what this is here. Was it this one? Actually, I think this is after I did the deep research. I don't have that one now, but I'll share this tab. One of the things I want to point out, I told it to make this little chart of comparing some of the UniFi stuff, for example. And it just gets things wrong. It's got prices in here that are not correct. It's got information in here that is not correct. You can simply go to the website of UniFi and see that it's incorrect. So Cloud Gateway Ultra, which is this model here, is $129. But according to, and if I'm reading this correctly, this says Cloud Gateway UCG Ultra, which that is the UCG Ultra. It's allegedly $299. And I think I may have deleted the deep research one. Did the same thing. It was like, okay, why is it just pulling the wrong data? So yeah, AI inaccuracies drive me crazy. And it's one of the things, like, no one is close to solving any of the hallucination problems at all. And this is my experience. I've used ChatGPT to create route maps for Cisco iOS. It usually gets it right. That's how I feel about it. It usually gets it right. I don't use Grok as much. I've played with it a couple times. Does Security Onion need a spinning drive because of frequent PCAPs? Writing could potentially harm an SSD? No. The answer to that is no. I just bought an R730 XT, going to put 5 drives in it. What do you recommend far as RAID Z level? You're not going to be able to get more than RAID Z2 there, but it comes down to your risk tolerance. If you want more, let me go back over to my TrueNAS really quick here to button that up. This is where the longer term data storage is right here. This is the shorter term data storage right here. So this is a RAID Z1 where I store my drives. It's on the flashy pool. I'm fine with it. It gets backed up every night. I'm not too worried about it. And then my archive is much bigger because there's 50 terabytes of data in there. So I have that one. There's only about, what is this? About a terabyte of data in here at any given time. Because this is like my active projects I'm working on, but they get moved to the archive where they're slower. So yeah, it's not a big deal. Well, I'm not showing that. I didn't have it shared. But yeah, RAID Z1 for my flash drives that I'm not as worried about because they back up all the time. And then I have RAID Z2 for my longer archive storage because moving 21 terabytes back and forth if I had to back up and restore would be kind of a pain. Blocking other devices is working. I just find it concerning I can IP scan across VLAN and UniFi. You cannot do this in pfSense. pfSense works a lot different. You can actually build rules inside of UniFi to stop that from happening. You could put a rule in for that. There's a whole discussion in my forums about it. Yeah, the deep research tells you all that. It tells you where it got all the data from. And it said it got it from their site. And it's wrong. So I don't know. Yeah, this is a huge issue. If you don't know if something's right. So one of the things I've argued a lot about with AI, I really will push hard against people who try to tell me things like, this will make your level 1 tech a level 3 tech. No, it will not. It will enhance a level 3 tech. Someone who's very adept at technology can use this as an enhancement tool to get things done. Absolutely, because someone like myself who has set up NFS with Olama before realized immediately that's incorrect. Same thing where me and my friend were writing my friend was writing, I was just observing. He was like, hey, I wonder if this can write a script to clean the disk. And we're like, it's actually right on what it said. It erased everything but the user's folder. It blew away Windows, it blew away everything. And it was given a lot of instruction to try to create the code properly. If you didn't know, it would be a problem. So yeah, it's interesting. What do you suggest I start a Homelab so it doesn't overwhelm me? Look at Raspberry Pi projects. They're among the simplest. That's probably the easy entry point because one, you don't have to invest in a lot of hardware. Raspberry Pis are relatively inexpensive. And you can find some neat projects out there that there's definitely a lot of community around that have a lot of instructions on how to set them up. Have I tried Perplexity? No, I I need to. It's been on my to-do list, but I've yeah, right now Google is becoming worse and worse, and I feel at some point Google's going to want you to use your AI. It's a whole thing, and um, it came out. I think Cory Doctorow's got a good list of this problem. It's all the problems that Google has been creating to just we'll just say the word shitify their search, and eventually they're going to be like, we've shitified the product that used to work. Everyone used to love how well Google search worked, and it doesn't work as well anymore. Companies stuffing SEO crap that is all garbage and AI slop generated that suddenly shows up higher in the rankings because Google can't be bothered to put some effort into fixing it because they'd rather put effort into selling you a subscription to something, or maybe eventually if Perplexity becomes a better way to search and sort out all the AI slop, you need another AI tool to sort out the AI slop. At some point, it seems stupid. It seems like Silicon Valley is looking for a reason to create a problem that they can sell me the solution for. That's my big opinion on a lot of the way this stuff is going. Hopefully, though, I don't know. Maybe Perplexity will. I want my old search back when it used to have results in it that were actually good. That's what I really want. I don't need a terrible search result and then some Silicon Valley startup to sell me the solution to the problem that their neighbor next door that they hang out with created. What's your opinion on cloud hosted versus on-site controllers? Whichever works for you. Both are good. And I have a video talking about where to host your controller. So I go over all the different pros and cons of each configuration. Look, if you want to have some fun with AI, you tell it to assume the personality. You create a writer's room, for example, to help you with some ideas. You throw a couple smart people that you like. You take some literary people that you want to influence it, but always add a Homer Simpson in there too to the writer's room. Have Homer Simpson debate with the other smart people. It can also be entertaining to do this. There's fun prompting you can do that can really enhance AI. AI is a large general large language model. Most of them, I know there's specific ones. So as you prompt engineer them down to something specific, that helps quite a bit on getting something useful out of them. Hope all is well and all is well. It's not just turtles all the way down. It's even worse. It's Silicon Valley VC firms all the way down trying to create problems and then charge me rent to solve them. That's how that's why we're talking self-hosted and a home lab here. How do we avoid these problems? How do we not be part of the enshittification cycle they would all love us to be in with? Yeah. What do you think with Homer? Donuts. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, this is a big part of it is prompt engineering. When I have the AI tools do things like they help me with YouTube titles. They do a good job of it. I actually take the transcripts from my videos. I Before they're published, I take the transcripts and I dump them into ChatGPT. I also say things like, "Hey, you're an expert on SEO. My audience is a tech enthusiast of home labbers, et cetera, et cetera." So I spend time prompt engineering to make sure that the AI knows the scope of what we're trying to cover. That helps a lot. If you start out and say, like, you're an expert on Cisco, you're an expert on this, and I need you to give me only concise answers of how to configure these Cisco parameters, and it will do generally a better job of it. Um, AV, no, antiviral recommendations, not at all. Clam AV still exists, which is cool. It still gets updated, but you're only going to find older style stuff with it. There's not a lot. It's not how most attacks happen. They're not zero. There's no, uh, they're not gone, but this is the same thing of like the history of security. Firewalls used to be a great stopper for a lot of these things when you could do traffic inspection. Now that everything's encrypted, firewalls are not so much the great way to do it. There used to be a lot of value in the lists that you can buy for threat intelligence. There's still value in it, but really modern threat actors are using Cloudflare tunnels. And you're not going to protect against a Cloudflare tunnel. And the same thing with Clam AV. Generic viruses are not, they still exist. There's still some out there because someone will download some random thing. But my best advice is don't download random things. Also, upload them to Virus Total if you do have to download a random thing, because Virus Total will do a much better job than any of the AI or non AI or local things or Clam AV will of detecting different problems that may exist in these. Speaking of projects, have you installed Rust Desk on a server on a Pi? Getting really tired of AnyDesk. I know I had a problem with my Pi 5 where it doesn't, if you're talking about like how to get to the web interface of the Pi 5, Rust Desk did not do a great job. It has something to do with the Linux I was running on it. So I don't really know, um, how good that is. As far as like working that way. But in terms of like running the server software under that doesn't take much at all. So you can run the Rust as server on a Pi without a problem. Yeah, the image generation is a great level of fun. Actually, I should bring up some of the images I've done. Where are they? The images are really fun in there. I will say they do a good job of image generation. Where's the I told it to take our company photo and and make it into an anime. It is hysterical because it made Jason look so angry. Um, hold on, I'll find the one of me and my wife because that one's really funny. So me and my wife went out to eat the other day. Um, so there's the picture of me and my wife out to eat, and I said, "Hey, redo it in Rick and Morty style," and it does a fun job. So this is stuff that it does a decent job. Something unusual is the fact that it flipped this. So it says Frank's Cafe and Fish down here, and then that's backwards here. So it's able to read the sign, but it flipped the sign, which I thought was kind of interesting. But definitely, I like the Rick and Morty version of me. Rita and Zeke are the best for detecting malware beaconing to C2 servers. Can you recommend similar tools to detect malware beaconing? You know, I think even inside security, that's what they're using is Zeke inside there. There's not a lot of other open source tools that do it. Maybe there are, and I'm not aware of them, but I think Zeke's kind of the go-to for a lot of that. This is all done with just ChatGPT and their new image generation. It does some things well. It does some things poorly. So these are a couple of friends of mine that own a company called Empath, and I told it to make a Simpsons version of them. It did a great job. So I said specifically, because their logo is an elephant, so I said, update this image to be Simpsons styled with them at the zoo with cute elephants that are using computers. And there we go. The result was great. That looks like my friends Alex and Wes. So it does some things that are pretty fun. It gets some things very wrong. Yeah. So like the company party one, there's the original, from our company holiday party, but the this version way different. So I don't know. It's kind of, yeah, it's hit and miss. I have a try as a Plex, but can't get available for direct play. Will detect relay currently on the same network. I haven't used Plex in a while, so I'm not exactly sure. I'm not a Plex expert. I probably stopped using Plex a number of years ago. I know everyone keeps telling me to switch to Jellyfin. Eventually, I will probably try Jellyfin, but I keep using MB because it works, and I don't watch that. I really don't watch much TV or anything that's in MB. It's like a once in a while thing. Do you still use Windows at all? I switched to Linux because the Intel video driver situation is getting out of hand for me, driver crashing glitches, and I almost felt like a beta tester. I have, and I was really mad about this. Hold on. Let me pull this up here. So I am using Windows for my gaming computer. And I was really annoyed, and I know I got to clean it up. There's this stupid thing from Microsoft it pops up to suggest I could buy my Microsoft software. I don't know. So my gaming computer is the only place I'm using Windows. I do have a Windows virtual machine where I occasionally, if I have to do something that requires Windows, I think I actually going to have a client that has some VPN software in order for me to get into their network that's going to require Windows. So yeah, I may have to have a VM dedicated to that client, but I don't really use Windows much at all. But this here is going to drive more people to Linux. New Windows 11 build makes mandatory Microsoft account sign in even more mandatory. Yeah. This is stupid. Microsoft has released a new Windows Insider build of Windows 11 to its external dev channel with a fairly extensive batch of new features and tweaks, but the most important for enthusiastic PC administrators is buried halfway down the list. This build removes the prompt script called bypass. Is it bypass NRO, which up until now has been a relatively easy, reliable way to circumvent the otherwise mandatory account sign-in requirements of Windows 11 PCs. So Windows is pushing people to Linux because they think you need to sign in for everything. We need your data. We need you to tie directly to our cloud and I don't know. I'm not going to rant too much about Microsoft, but they're putting the nails in the coffin of Microsoft. Well, they're not really putting nails in the coffin. People will still use it. To Frank's question, are you aware of any lower cost EDR solutions that people use at home? If you're running Windows, Microsoft. If you're running Linux, ClamAV. But honestly, I don't use either because I don't download weird files that I execute. That's my biggest advice. If you're not downloading a bunch of strange things to execute, then it's not a big deal. I don't download binaries and execute them. So that's why I don't spend a lot of time concerned about AV. And on that off chance that there's some weird thing I have to check, I'm going to upload it to VirusTotal. VirusTotal is wonderful for uploading things to figure out if there's a problem with it. It is an amazing site. It's been around forever. You can check URLs with it. You can do some search stuff, but either way, choose file, upload said file, and try to figure out if there's a problem with that file. If you have to download something shady, VirusTotal is probably going to do a better job than any of the other tools I can recommend you download because it's going to check all the engines against it, not just a specific thing. RustDesk is probably an easy one to set up on your parents. That's kind of an easy go-to one for remote access to help them out. I think RustDesk was the easiest to set up. Someone's going to recommend, like, there's Mesh Central. I think there's also, I'm trying to think, there might be another one. I don't know. Mesh Central is probably a really popular one too. RustDesk to me was dead easy. So it had like the least amount of steps to get it going, and it works for having persistent access to things. Yeah, Jason, it just figured he looked angry and made him look angrier. You're right. I use Linux for day and work and Windows for gaming. Yep. I bought a gaming laptop. By the way, I'll bring this up again because I've been getting a lot of friend requests. Feel free to reach out to me on Steam or whatever. You find me. There's me. There's me on Steam. I'll throw a link in here. I'm slowly getting more into playing games and trying to relax once in a while and disconnect. I'm just connected to a different computer. So I say disconnect. I just mean stop playing with all my Homelab stuff for a day and go play on my computer, a different computer. Yeah, as long as you have RustDesk set up publicly, you can control them outside. You just have to make sure that the server you have set up for RustDesk, if you self-host it, is publicly accessible. MSP question: Do you find new tools you like to include for clients? When, if, how do you do the price increase, or do you just eat a little into the profit for better capabilities? It's all just kind of a big balancing act. There's not a prescripted answer I can give you for this. It's kind of a big balancing act that we evaluate things and figure out, like, does this fit within the contract budgets or whatever? And frequently we don't just add a new tool willy-nilly. Frequently we're looking for tools that will replace other tools or consolidate tools whenever possible, because sometimes there's too many tools. So there's a balancing act in there. But SIM, for example, has become a more critical part. It's required for insurance. And as contract renewals come up, there's built-in increases for these contract renewals to help work with that. I thought Basil looked really cool, but I can't remember which game I was looking at. But there's a couple of games I wanted to play at the time and possibly in the future where the problem with Basil is the fiddling with any of those. And I'm as mad about them as anyone else, but the anti-cheat things in there that get overly aggressive that often require Windows to work. Yeah, that so if you have to check, Basil's awesome. I actually, my daughter's fiance uses Basil on his laptop. He loves it. And I don't know if he's using Basil or one of the other ones. He's using Linux though for gaming, and it runs all the games he wants to run. But if you have a game that you want to run and you have to deal with compatibility, I kind of want to just play games and not play with the computer. That was my other reason for doing it. Although Windows certainly has its aggravation. Maybe eventually I'll switch my laptop over to Basil. I don't know. If I'm required to sign in my own PC with a Microsoft account, that's the day I'm moving to Linux. Well, Windows 11's coming for you, buddy. Hate to break the news. Yes. But Microsoft's going to want more and more from us. You're not wrong. And people a lot of times just surrender their data thinking that's the only way to do it. Nmap is a really in-depth tool that is far more than just an advanced IP scanner. So Nmap, if you want really detailed things, Nmap is, take the time to learn it. Looking for recommendations on network diagramming tools. They all seem generalized diagramming tools. Know of any that might be network specific? They're mostly all generalized because no one wants to. I mean, there's some exceptions here. If you're buying some of the commercial software that does the mapping for you, sure, they have some tools. Domots, who's previously been a sponsor on the channel, Domots has some auto networking maps. I don't know that those maps can be exported, but they can build automatically with the commercial Domots tool. I think they have a free tier if you want to try it out. But honestly, I have, and this is available on my GitHub. I just posted this on Reddit this morning because someone was asking about this, and I'll share it here. I've done videos on draw.io. It's personally what I use for all my drawing diagrams, but because you're asking about networking and I do a lot of networking ones, I have a bunch of templates for all the different things I've done. Not 100% of them. I try to remember. If anyone asks about one of them, I usually upload it in here, like my lab setup. I just added just a few months ago. Some of these have been floating around for years in here. These are a bunch of templates in draw.io that are for networking. Yeah, virus total is definitely the way to go for that, for uploading random binaries people send. 802.1x with UniFi and pfSense. Is their RadSec working for wired devices? I don't know. I don't use it very often. I know we've done some 802.1x for some clients with UniFi. It's not a real frequent request. I'd like to extend my storage on a cloud VPS by remote mounting local Homelab storage. What's the best way to do this? I don't think there's any great way to do that because when you bridge things from the cloud to home, storage expects to be persistent. You could potentially have storage drops because of internet connectivity drops. What is the way the application you're going to do is going to handle that? NFS over the internet, not a great idea. You probably could do it over a VPN, but once again, not a great idea. SSHFS, maybe, but think about how those applications are going to handle that. That's the most important part. Can router OS hardware replace all the functionality that something like IP tables, NF tables does? I mean, I'm not an expert because I've not really used router OS, but I mean, it's a router OS. I'm assuming you're talking about the MeekerTick router OS. It's a pretty capable firewall. It's got some complexities configuring it, but has quite a bit. Netbox is on my to-do list. I need to hunker down and finish setting up Netbox. Netbox is great for not just documenting your network, but being able to have integrations to help auto document your network. Do you recommend port mirroring on the switch activity to monitor your PCAP files with Curiant? Yeah, that's definitely if you want really in-depth information to come out of Security Onion, you need to input all that in-depth information with port mirroring. It's probably going to be one of the best ways to do it. You got to go. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Hey, glad to have you hang out here. I'm trying to figure out how much longer I'm hanging out because I want to get to some games today. That's actually, I think, what I'm going to do for a little. I was just drizzling out all day, so I will if there's some in between drizzles, I try to go for a walk. It's good for you. I need to get some exercise. But yeah, the go enjoy your day, my friend. So I'm doing my Homelab. I use port mirroring with my core switch to copy all the IoT traffic from my router to a Pi 4B that runs Zeek to analyze the traffic. Yeah. What game recently? Where did my Steam thing go? I don't know. So I like games that are cooperative, and I'm not specifically only a first person shooter, although my recent Steam information would convince otherwise. I did spend 8 hours playing Insurgency Sandstorm yesterday. I definitely think that game was fun. I like it because it's cooperative, and Call of Duty I think is just pretty. So I'm just going through the what do you call it? Like the missions, playing around with it. I just think it's a pretty game. I got it on sale. I think I got it for next to nothing on one of the Steam sales or whatever. I liked the Division. Division 1 and 2 were great. I hope Division 3 comes out and is a good game. Marvel Rivals. Okay. What do you think of using AM4 type hardware for home servers? I think it's the best value for the money you can get. Wendell from Level 1 Texas, generally my go-to recommended person when it comes to a lot of the Homelab hardware. And so is Hardware Haven. He's a friend of mine too. So I don't keep up with a lot of the hardware. So I can't really answer those questions as concise. Like I don't keep up with all the prices on all of it. Do you prefer more puzzle strategies? Real-time strategy is kind of fun too. So it's not always first-person shooters. It's just kind of easy. I like stuff I can casually play. My friend just recommended a couple games to me. I'm trying to remember which one they were. They're on my wish list now. Actually, I can look at my wish list. I think I can see it from here, right? Store wish list. There we go. My friend recommended RimWorld, said that was good. What was the other one? Someone told me Hades was good. Outer Wilds. This is the one my friend really said was a great game. My son has recommended this one here. Balatro is some type of card game. My wife wants to play this, Unravel 2, but I think she wants to play this, me and her, on the Xbox. My wife has an Xbox, the new one. I don't know what the new one is. I just know it's whatever Xbox has existed in the last year. That's when my wife has. She got it last year. But yeah, there's just a couple games in here. Like I said, I'm relatively new to the gaming. I don't play it that often, and I'm trying to slowly get back into it to play with some more people. What software for MFA can you suggest? I need a more in-depth question here. I like Aegis, Aegis. If you're asking like for holding all your TOTP, that works great. Aegis is solid. Yes, the Owl Who Raids. He's got a lot of hardware videos as well on things. But I've done a video on Aegis. It's a good two-factor authenticator in terms of like being able to hold the data. It's open source as well. So Aegis. I've done a video on it. Oh yeah, Wendell's in between. Wendell, we all are. We all kind of are bouncing around between these different areas. Some people definitely dive deeper into the Homelab than even I do. Some people say I'm too on the enterprise with all the large NAS stuff I do. I don't know. Yeah, Rainbow Six Siege. I believe I have that. That is one of the other games that I was playing. So Oh, no, I was playing Vegas. But Siege is another one that I think I was gonna I like cooperative games. How's that? Cooperative games and, I am kinda slowly looking for people to play. The downside is I trying to find, like, a time I can regularly play games, especially when I travel, it'll mess all that up. Because I remember when I was younger, I had, like, a regular group of friends 20 years ago that I play games with online, which was always cool, and slowly trying to find some of that. Is your open source firewall market just consolidating as the market matures? Nothing to worry about, right? Also explains why the feature set is stagnating. Yeah. Oh, I've been playing some Command and Conquer. I bought the Command and Conquer when it was on sale, so I've been playing it's the remastered Command and Conquer. Yeah, I started networking in the 90s. So that's been a long time that I've gotten into the um networking. So yes, 2400 baud was actually a little bit before me. I started with I had a 33. Well, no, just somewhere in between there. I dialed into BBSs. They were a little faster than 2400 at the time. Was it 33? Yeah. I had my old V dot everything modem and fun stuff. I'm playing BO6 Zombies. Okay. Uh, while watching your stream. Cool. Yeah, finding a regular time to game and being an adult is the hardest. Well, I wanted to play games, and then my wife, like Friday, I was going to play games Friday. My wife's like, "Oh, I invited all of our friends over." So next thing you know, people are at my house. So I got to play yesterday because my wife had stuff to do, but like she just invites people over, and I don't mind having people over my house, but it obviously disrupts gaming a little bit. But it was really nice out. I did want to. Friday was really nice, and so the people all over my house. This is what it looks like. This is my backyard, and so we build a fire, and we got all these little lights and stuff. So we sit by the fire and enjoy the night. So I didn't play games, but I also had a nice time outside. So sometimes Tom goes outside. Sometimes I leave the confines of my studio. World of Warships. I've seen a lot of ads for World of Warships. Yeah, I am gonna be 50 soon. Bumping my head against NFS. Saw your video. Any difference? Root ownership plus open permissions plus stage home subdirectory, creating a user and TrueNAS to own the share and using mapall. No, you can do it the more complicated way. Do I remember Modern Wars? Doesn't ring a bell. Oh, I still listen to the V90 negotiation sound sometimes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we had the 56K. I think the first one I had was a 28.8, but I could do the firmware upgrade to get it is it V33, 33.3. So, and then we would mess and tinker with the windsock trumpet MTU, and we'd tune it really well. Yeah. Some of the people in the company play games. Not many though. How dare you touch grass? I know Tom actually touches grass quite a bit. I have motorcycles for those of you who don't know, and that's one of my touch grass things I do. Well, sometimes I touch the grass really fast. I ended up in the hospital once. Yeah, the 33.6. There we go. I thought it was the V90, or was it the V dot everything? It's been a long time. Oh, Modem Wars, one of the first modem. Okay, Modem Wars. Got it. I read that as Modern Wars. Yeah, grass can be slick. Did you get good at listening to the negotiation sounds to figure out what speed the modem was? Um, no, my hearing is not that great. So no. I went down on my bike when I was in the military, about 50 on a curve, planted my jump boots 5 times. Yeah, it's rough. Crashing sucks. V90 combined the competing K-Flex 62X2 standards, and V90 came along a bit later and allowed us for slightly faster uploads due to uh, better analog wizardry. Yeah, it was fun trying to tweak all the settings on there. I just got a new workstation with 500 gig SSD, 2 terabyte HD. I'm thinking of setting up Security Onion. Would be better to install it in Proxmox or just directly on a workstation. Security Onion is easier to deal with directly, especially when it comes to things like port mirroring. But if you are skilled in Proxmox and know how to set up the rest of the details to make that function, you can run it in Proxmox. I don't have any instructions on how to do that, but yeah. What do you ride? Right now, all I have is a little Honda. Actually, I got a Honda and I got a Piaggio scooter. I just ride small bikes now after I sold my big bikes after the crash. So now that I don't have big motorcycles anymore, I just ride my little Honda 125 around out in the woods because it's fun. It's got license plates on it. I used to. Here's me, and it's funny. I mean, people are sometimes surprised. These little Hondas go all over the place. This is like up in northern Michigan, so yeah. Me and the little Honda go out most places. It's funny because I still gear up. I still have the gear from when I had my big motorcycle. I just don't have the big motorcycle anymore. The big motorcycle is much more dangerous. But I used to ride with like the BMW guys. These are some of the rides I go on, and yeah, my motorcycle's out. I'm in the back there somewhere. Yeah, there's my motorcycle's the blue Yamaha right here. A lot of my friends used to ride BMWs and stuff, and yeah. Anyways, that's me touching grass or occasionally hitting the ground. I rarely buy. I mean, sometimes, but rarely do I buy servers off of eBay. I don't have a ton of old server equipment, so but me and my friend Mike are going to do a video about some of the old server equipment that we have bought. Well, he's bought, and I helped him set up. So there is a use case for it. And we buy a lot of stuff because it's for our clients. It's going to be a lot of newer things, but I want to get some videos out there to talk about, buying some of the older equipment because there's really good life left in a lot of it. You can affordably build some good things. Now we do buy some refurbished Dell servers, but they're like Dell 740s, so they're not exactly old. So we're not buying them off eBay. But I want to do some videos on X. I think it's a great topic of how do I get into building something that's very useful, very production ready in terms of like what I want to build for my home lab or my hosting without spending, exuberant amounts of money. I gave up on gaming, do the adventure writing thing, the best thing ever, totally forget about other stuff. Oh yeah, I still love the adventure writing stuff. I'm, even doing it on a Honda, that little 125, I just disappear out in the woods for 2 days and I'm happy. I am disconnected. I'm not using a phone for anything. I have a separate navigation phone that doesn't have internet. I download all the maps to it when it has internet, and it not by accident doesn't have internet. I don't feel like putting a card in it or anything. I do love going offline. I have a camp. I go camping too. So I take my camper, my little motorcycle, and I go off grid because people are like, "Hey Tom, should you get Starlink for your camper?" No, I should not. I am not able to be reached. I am not going online for the next 5 days. Actually, I take that back. I usually have enough cell service that I'll reply to friends. Like I communicate with so many people over like Signal, but I'm not really online. I always wanted to ask, was the best was the best or just good way to set up parental controls? Ooh. There's some level of parental controls you can do with Ubiquiti, but parental controls are challenging, especially if you have clever children. Parenting is the best parental control. I know it's hard. I say that completely as a parent of watching them and making sure they're not doing something stupid on the computer is difficult. Even as a technology person myself, it's not easy. So parental controls is really hard. Parenting is like one of my go-tos with a lot of it. And having the computer not in a room. I know that's a whole different issue, but I have several rackable cabinets, but without rails. They cost a fortune on Amazon. I simply can't find any. Um, instead of rails, just use the guides. If you look at my rack build, my Homelab rack build video, I talk about using just those bars. I think they're like $30 that you can put across. They go by different names, but they're essentially, if you don't have rails, I mean, you can find rails on eBay, but that always becomes a challenge of lining them up to the hardware you have. But if you look at my rack build video or even my recent Homelab tour video, you'll see that I have basically some non-rail mounted stuff that just sets in there. I would love to rip my property up if my neighbors didn't complain so much. Yeah. Hey, Tom, been learning IP tables recently. Awesome. Are IP tables enough secure Debian server, or is there something else I should be looking at? Assuming SSH keys over WireGuard or using a jump box. I mean, yes, those are all good things to do. First, you set the firewall rules up, and I think they're fine. Then you get more exact with them. And what I mean by more exact is instead of just saying, I'm going to leave port 22 open so I can administer this server, I'm going to go allow port 22, but only allow ingress. Sorry, I hit the microphone. Only allow ingress from your jump box, for example. And that would be a better way to lock it down. So now you can put more security around your jump box, and you've narrowed down, you've brought the threat surface to as minimal as possible. So it's not a bad idea. My Honda goes about 50, 55 downhill. I do like the electric ones. They don't have the range I want yet, but they're cool. The Suron is awesome. I thought about buying one. The range is my only challenge with them. Because when I say I want to go disappear in the woods, I mean, I want to go 200 miles on my motorcycle in the middle of nowhere. And I know the electric ones are getting there. Oh, you get in trouble start. Yeah, if you got a loud vehicle. I've had loud vehicles. I do not have any loud vehicles anymore. You did the Super Duke 1290 GT. A lot of fun. Awesome. So can be difficult to use properly virtually. It's best to install bare metal. I'm using a micro PC I picked up at an auction, purchased as a network tap. Yeah. I had a mountain bike crash a month ago. I'm still recovering from. Not sure I want to experience a motorcycle crash. Yeah, motorcycle crashes are worse. I sold the big motorcycle that weighed like 600 pounds, and crashing on that kind of sucks because you have to also pick it back up. Oh, yeah. People on the road are another issue. I crashed in the dirt, so my crash was completely my fault for being on a motorcycle in the dirt. You were talking, a local friend. You were talking about co-op games earlier. For you and the wife, check out A Way Out. Very fun co-op game, requires communication, teamwork. Also, me and the wife played that game. I think it's called It Takes Two. Top-notch game for two people to play, especially a couple. I thought it was great. Me and the wife really enjoyed that one. 7 Days to Die. All right, I'll check that one out. You ever think of recording a GoPro for the second chan? I have a few videos on my personal channel. If you dig around, you can figure it out. I don't know. I go back and forth of whether or not, and maybe in the future I will start out a second channel. I've thought about that because I have stuff that I don't know where else to put it, but I don't mind sharing. And I know other people may also want to share in that same hobby with me. So there's maybe a time where Tom creates a second channel because one of my motorcycle videos has a lot of views because I realized no one else took the time to cover some of the history of one of the, I like classic motorcycles, little Hondas specifically. And I might do an updated video on that. And maybe I'll do a review video of my Hondas. I've had it for a few years. So that, yeah, maybe there's an opportunity there. Encourage me, people. I'll probably do that. I have a 2012 Honda Rebel 250. Those are fun little bikes. Yeah, they can be a great trail bike. I don't know about trail bike with the Rebel, but maybe. My son learned lots about network security by playing with the cat and mouse game of trying to use controls. Then we figure out a way around them. Yeah. Clever kids who are trying to bypass parental controls. Determined children will learn a lot about computers trying to defeat the controls the parents have done. Zen Armor or Suricata, which one is the best? I don't put a ton of faith in either. I've not used Zen Armor. Suricata, I've talked about what Suricata misses. I believe that's what I have. The title of the video is what your firewall misses. So it can only see so much unless it can decrypt the traffic. So it's very limited on what it's able to see. My house is L-shaped. I have a U7 Pro in each corner of the house. Do you feel a third in L corners too much? That's a you question, not a me question. And I say that because I just don't really need the 6 gigahertz myself. So if you have 2.4 coverage, when you start looking at speeds, there's people running speed tests. They want the absolute ultimate speed, but what are you downloading that needs that much speed on a regular basis wirelessly? I mean, granted, I have a gaming laptop, so I want my Steam games to download as fast as possible, but it's usually limited by my internet, unless you have really, really fast internet. It's the only time it really makes a big difference. So yeah. This is now a touching grass Q&A. Yes. Tom, the trick is to separate yourself from the bike when flying. Yes, I've got a video. I've uploaded a video about crashing because I crashed a lot and didn't get hurt. There's a lot of times where the motorcycle is laying on its side and I did not. I was fine. Motorcycle, it was fine too. Sand is the enemy for anyone who's tried to ride in lots of sandy areas. Yeah, it's rough. The nice thing is sand is also soft. By the way, is stream bitrate lower on purpose? For some reason, YouTube limits it because I am not a member. You kind of seem pixelated, but there's not much movement. I don't know. It's set to 1080. It says it's at 1080. I don't know what YouTube mangles it to. Do you have any cyber deck for data recovery? No, I do not, but I'd also not understand the question. I got into computers not to get owned by Casa downloads. Yes. Oh, back in the day. Yeah, good old back in Linux instead of Windows. Replace all. That's what we talked about earlier too. Windows 11 is going to require your sign in according to the latest Ars Technica article I read this morning. So yeah, probably not a bad idea. Okay, Tom, a challenge. Can you go off grid? No phone, nothing. And how long do you get the keyboard withdrawal? If I have something to do, I don't get it at all. I'm sometimes, one day I'll just disappear off the internet. There's a chance of that. How's that? Like, I kind of like going offline sometimes, and I go, maybe one day I'll just disappear. Just poof. And there's a bunch of videos this guy made, and one day he just stopped. No, I would actually probably do a goodbye video. Goodbye, internet. Goodbye. I'm going to go live in the woods somewhere. So I'd let people know I'm going to be gone. I don't think I would just disappear without at least saying goodbye. But I don't see that happening anytime soon, but I actually don't mind. I kind of like the refresh of doing it. I don't get the anxiety where I got to check my phone or anything like that. I actually put my phone on do not disturb quite a bit just during the day. That's the secret to getting things done, is turn the phone off and turn notifications off. However that notifications are coming at you, that helps a lot. Yeah, the Split Fiction game looks really cool. I know it's the same studio that did It Takes Two. I'm hoping that game is just as good. Yeah, if it's just because, spend the money. If you have the money, spend the money. Consumerism. it's We're justifying it. We have to test all the tech. The Stats for Nerds reports 11,000 kilobits for 1080. I'm not seeing. I mean, StreamYard sets it to 1080. I don't know like how YouTube interacts with that. Have you ever crashed while washing your bike? I've tipped my bike over many times. I have 2 APs around the house, run Wi-Fi 6 on 5 gigahertz using 40 megahertz channels because congestion here, up to 500 megabit speed. That's more than enough. Wi-Fi is not having 20 people hitting 1 AP. Yeah, it's all about how you want to distribute it. pfSense WireGuard. I can VPN in, can get to pfSense admin page, iDirect page, but cannot connect to anything else like Windows VM running on the Dell server hosting TrueNAS or the TrueNAS admin page. So usually the problem, if you're able to get to some things, it could be that the gateway is not set. This is a problem I've run into with TrueNAS where their DHCP gets an IP address but doesn't have a gateway. You need a gateway for routing to work because you're coming in the network and it needs to route back. It needs to reply to it. So when you have pfSense without a gateway in it, there's not a way for the pfSense to know where that packet comes from. It actually comes in and hits the web interface going, oh, you want to open the web interface. Where do I send this back to? Because you don't appear to be on the local network. So you want to make sure there's a gateway in your pfSense. Windows VMs, one of the things with Windows, if I'm not mistaken, this is still the default. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but in Windows, it defaults to the firewall not replying to anything that's on a different subnet. You can fix that. You just go into Windows firewall settings and change it or test it by turning the Windows firewall off to confirm that's where the issue is. I'm not a Windows firewall expert, by the way, but I think that's the default Microsoft sets up now. Which Linux operating system would you recommend for a beginner? I'm a big fan of Pop! OS, not just for the beginners, but for myself and the advanced use cases I have for it. Pop! OS is really Ubuntu with a little bit more polish on it, and I think it works quite well. But Ubuntu is not bad either. Either Ubuntu or Pop! OS, I think, are both good choices. Getting started video for motorcycle riding. Not likely. You know, what I don't mind sharing is any of the knowledge I have of wrenching on old motorcycles, because I feel that could be a lost art. Like if the younger generation wants to restore some motorcycles, I'm so happy there's a lot of people who have covered a lot of it. And I still have more knowledge I can share because I've worked on motorcycles as long as I've worked on, well, longer in some ways than I worked on computers. So I may make some videos on that as a topic. If I decide to rebuild my old Honda, I would definitely document it. I have a 1970s Honda trail bike. So I'm big on knowledge sharing, whether that be network engineering or how a points system works. And you're probably going to, if you Googled it, you're like, what? Yeah. How do 6-volt electrical systems and how does the timing advance work on those? That is a rabbit hole that I find equally fascinating. And I don't mind sharing knowledge on that. That'll be not on my main channel, of course. Just bought a UPS. Any tips for checking or maintaining UPS connection with nut? Several people have nut videos, like Techno Tim has one. Jeff Geerling has one. I do not have one. So watch their videos would be my tip. Good tool for switchport mapping. You can try Netbox. I've heard it can do some of that, but I'm not an expert on that. It kind of depends too on the device of whether or not it has the ability to really export all that data or if it's available via SNMP. YouTube Premium members can set the stream to 1080. Not sure about non-premium. Interesting. Someone says non-members can do it as well. Okay. Cyberdeck, a Raspberry Pi and a Pelican case with a screen and keyboard and batteries. The idea is to withstand damage to back up important data. That might be a fun project. I've thought about making some type of they sell a fireproof NAS, but it's expensive. I'm wondering how hard it would be to DIY something, like to have another way to be able to have a backup of data that would survive disaster. Or do I just buy a safe and drill a hole in it and run a network cable in it? I don't know. Hi, Tom. Finally caught one of your live streams. Thank you so much for all the awesome content. I learned so much. Awesome. Good to hear from you. My daughter's fiance uses Linux, and I think he started with the one people mentioned earlier. I know I want to say Bastion, but it's completely not it. It begins with a B, I think. It's the Steam OS alternative. He started with that. I think he's doing something else now, but I'm not positive. What is that called? You know, if you watch the ETA Prime channel, he covers a lot of videos on that, specifically that. It's got Bazios. Is that what it is? I don't know. B something. I've already forgotten it. Have you ever worked with DC power supply for servers? No, I have not. Oh, yeah. I had one of those ATC Hondas as well. Those are fun. I've configured Home Assistant application on SureNAS Scale and deployed HomeKit Bridge and Home Assistant, attempting to add the device to my Apple devices. I've never tried any of the. I don't have any Apple devices. Bazite, there we go. Well, thank you for the brain trust of people that are on this live stream. There's like millions of years, maybe not that many, but thousands of years of collective intelligence here, and it's awesome. I used to own a 76 Cobra back in the day. Dropped the new engine. Used to cruise. Oh, cruising the graph. Yeah. Yep. Back in the day, back when Joy Road and Telegraph. That's probably the era you were in. I was out there in my old Camaro and doing the Joy Road and Telegraph. We'd loop out there. You'd race under the viaducts. You know, back in the earlier days of '90s, before cars had incredible amounts of horsepower they have now, the police were a little bit more forgiving about the racing. Briefly, some were, not all. Some of the cops are kind of cool. The cars have so much horsepower now, and the racing is so out of hand. It's not like when I was a kid. No one had 800 horsepower at the regular. Like, it is insane how fast the new cars are. Whole different, it's not like the old 70s sports cars. Oh, man. All right. Well, I'm going to wind this down here. So I'm going to go play some games or whatnot. And so thank you all for joining. This was definitely a fun live stream. I should go watch some motorcycle drag racing. I haven't been out to the drag races in forever. So yeah. 1320 street races are sketchy. Oh yeah. Here, I'll leave people with this. If you want to know, whoops, I'll share this video with you folks as the last thing I'll do here. This has calmed down maybe a little bit over the last, but let me throw the video here. This is right here in Detroit. Short video. Was it like 13 minutes long? But it just talks about all the street racing going on in Detroit.
And try to charge them with any kind of ticket they want to.
But yeah, the police show up, everyone scatters. It's fun though. Well, it got out of hand because people got hurt. So if anyone wants to watch it, this is stuff the sketchy things that do go on in Detroit. Detroit certainly sometimes has lived up to its reputation for sketchy things. I'm not going to lie. But thanks all for joining. I'm going to leave you guys something else to watch. Head over to the forums at lawrencesystems.com. You can always reach me at homelab@lawrencesystems.com if you want to send me an email or say hi. And thanks, everyone. Take care.